Hey besties, I'm Victoria, and welcome to the Book Besteas Podcast, where the books are good, the takes are honest, and the tea is always hot. Today we're chatting The Goal, book 4 of the Off Campus series by Elle Kennedy. Going into this book, first I watched the TV adaptation, and I did not expect the Southern gentleman that we got out of Tucker in the book. And also, I know that Sabrina had so much online hate, and I just don't understand it. After reading the book, I was like, where did that even come from? I love them as a couple and Sabrina. And in fact, I haven't decided yet, but I think that they might be my favorite couple out of all of them in this series, guys. Okay? It's that big of a deal. So let's dive in. First, let's talk about Sabrina because she's such a unique character. She's had to deal with so much since she had to grow up. Basically without parents, and her grandmother was not very supportive. She grew up with a very sexually harassing stepdad, and all of that combined made her really resilient and stubborn and hardworking. But at the same time, which I find really endearing, is that even though her upbringing was so hard, she still found the love and appreciation for people who were good in her life. Or maybe because of that background, the good ones in her life really were special to her. Her besties at first, and then later on, of course, Tucker. I love that she can just embrace her besties being so amazing toward her and share so much appreciation for them. She's also really, really smart and really strategic, and that lends to her going through law school. She's already had so much adversity growing up, but then she experiences even more of that because she's an unconventional student at Harvard, whereby she's pregnant and she's poor. And I feel like it's so real. Like, I haven't personally experienced an Ivy League school, but I could imagine, based on, what we see on social media of students sharing their experiences, that this might not be too much of an exaggeration. Her experience of having professors and fellow classmates ridiculing her because she's poor, because of what she wears, and then later on, even more so when she gets pregnant. It's so abhorrent to me that people can treat other people basically like dirt, like shit. That's how I felt about her whole Harvard experience. But good for her for pushing through regardless, because she knew her own value. Even though she's poor and she gets ridiculed all the time for it, she knows her worth, that she's a smart cookie, and that her background is not going to hold her back from her goals, and she goes for it. And also, I think she gets a lot of bad rep in terms of being called judgy. Yes, yeah, judgy, because of what Dean's perception of her was, and that was the initial impression we got of her in the whole series. But I think it's actually the opposite. She is not judgy at all of other people. Like, she works at a stripper bar and she's like, this is the best place that she's ever worked at. She does not look down on the owners who are former strippers either, and she doesn't look down on herself for being poor. She also really highly respects her friends. I think it's actually the other way around, in that people keep judging her for her background, and then because of her background, judging her extra hard when she got pregnant. And despite all of the judgment that she receives, she's still at the end of the day, to me, such a good person. And yes, we'll talk about her and Tucker's relationship and how Tucker got very much the short end of things for a bit, but she still treasured him. Like, as much as like the logic was off, the mental hurdles that she had to go through to tell herself, I love him and therefore I can't tell him that I love him, I still concluded basically that she loves him a lot. Let's dig into Tucker. So, like I said, I watched the TV adaptation before going into the book. I did not expect this Southern gentleman. Yes, he's a playboy, of course. He loves sex, just as all of the other boys in this series do, but he is so sweet. Like, his Southern charm, the way he utilizes it, not only to pick her up at the bar, but also to charm other people, like even elderly couples like the one at the painting class. Guys, I love Tucker. Sometimes, just as much as Sabrina does, I get frustrated with him being so accommodating. And hear me out, because it just sounds like, wow, why are you complaining about that? It's really hard to have a balanced relationship when one person keeps putting their own needs as on the back burner and not explaining them, because that just slowly builds up resentment. And I think that's really Tucker's only flaw, I would say. It's a big one for their relationship because Sabrina's such a straightforward person and he's not. Or maybe Okay, let's say this. Is she a straightforward person though? You tell me, because she did hold back on telling him that she loves him. But I would say, in terms of going for what she wants and being clear about what she wants, I think that part is she's straightforward. In terms of holding back her own needs because she doesn't want to burden him, I think that's a whole separate category. Okay, actually, maybe they're very similar in that regard then, because they're both holding back. In his case, he's holding back on his own needs because he wants to support her in her ambitions, which she has very high ambitions. At the same time, she is also holding back on expressing how much she loves him for basically the whole book because she doesn't want to burden him. And it kind of goes back to the same concept of they don't want to burden each other. But and yet somehow they made it work. And good for them. I'm glad they did that. I think even though they didn't give themselves too much credit for because they're like, oh, we're such young parents, what are we even doing with a kid? They still were really good parents because they both had an upbringing where they valued having a family. So they really treasure the time that they have as parents and they invest in their child accordingly. I just love that. But also, I'd like to see them more invest in their relationship, their personal relationship. And, we get to see some of that playing out in the next book, which I won't spoil. But now going back to Tucker, right? Specifically. So, first of all, he is such a woman pleaser. He knows how to go in so smooth. The way that, first of all, I love that he was not deterred when Dean is like, oh, don't touch that. Like, she's, not good for you. And he was like, I think I will. And he goes right for it. He goes right in and then smoothly kind of gets closer and physically and emotionally closer and closer to Sabrina, to the point where she's like, wait, he's literally touching me now. And she liked it. And then they had their moment in the car that same night. Also, I love that he stood up for Dean, but then also is like, I'm not going to take your full word for it, Dean, that she's a bad person. I'm still going to go see for myself. And that shows me too that he's loyal, but he also has a mind of his own. I love that about Tucker, okay? I think he doesn't get enough credit for that. Also, this is something that Sabrina points out, is that he has the confidence without the ego. Because we, learn about Garrett being like, yeah, I'm the hot shit. And Dean kind of is like that too. But Tucker has the confidence, like, yeah, this is who I am. Like, I can please a woman. I can do this or that. But I'm not going to keep boasting about it. There's a fine line. It kind of sounds the same thing, but it's not quite. He is a Southern mama's boy. And it's a give or take, but I think that he balances it well. Because on the one hand, yes, his mom was a single mom raising him. So, he's obviously very attached to his mom. But at the same time, when Sabrina comes into the picture and the mom is really attacking Sabrina, he stands up for her. He's like, she's a great person, but even if she's not, she's still carrying my child. And you have to respect that. Obviously, his mom does not appreciate that there's another woman in his life who's more important than her, but she has to eventually accept that, and she does, but it takes a while to get there. But along the way, Tucker still remained steadfast on putting Sabrina first. I love that. But then also being soft with his mom, kind of easing that in. Firm, but still not harsh. I just love that he always notices the big and small things that make Sabrina so amazing. The fact that she could balance so many things at once, he just loves and respects her so much for it. Every chance he gets, even if he doesn't say it out loud, in his mind, he's just like, wow, she's the Hulk. She's Superwoman. All of these compliments in his head because he truly recognizes everything that makes her amazing. And finally, he is actually a good businessman. We didn't actually get too much of Tucker in the hockey stuff, so I didn't think of him necessarily as a sports jock too much. But I also never thought that he would be a businessman. I was kind of actually wondering what his career path would look like. But after we see him walking into the bar and meeting the original owner and then going, even though this place is run down, it still has so much potential, has really great high beams and stuff. If fixed up, this would be amazing. He has, one, the eye for seeing potential in things and people. And then two, he has a team mindset. Even though we don't see him doing too much of the hockey stuff, he still makes sports references about teamwork all the time. And so to me, that is a sign that he would be a good manager. Tucker's got a lot of great qualities. And honestly, I didn't even have to dig for it. Kind of like with the other characters, like the other male characters of this series, sometimes you have to like really, really pay attention to those particular moments. With Tucker, every single moment of him, he's just oozing empathy, kindness, charm, and he's still sexy on top of all of that, guys. I mean, now that I describe him more, it's like I feel like he's my top MMC of this whole series, but don't quote me, okay? I have to finally get to the last episode and then I'll let you know. Let's dive into their relationship because as much as I say that they're similar in that they both are very they put themselves on the back burner so that they don't burden the other, it's still they're still very much opposites in so many ways. Yes, like he's a businessman, he's going for that, but at the same time he values the time with their daughter and with his mom or friends more than his career, at least for now, right? And then her, on the other hand, because she's just always been in this mode of, I got to become a successful lawyer. I'm going to get out of this house. I'm going to make a name for myself. She never quite let that go, even until the end when she does say to his mom that I would let it all go if his or Jamie's happiness was sacrificed. She's still very ambitious all the way until the end. And that's, I'm not blaming her, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I'm just saying that makes them very opposite, but I do think that plays well into the relationship because he's willing to take a lot of time to take care of Jamie while she is really killing it at Harvard, killing herself in the process, but killing it. And I love that they have a partnership outside of their well, okay, at least we get to see a little bit of the relationship grow before they find out that they're pregnant. Even if they're not official yet, you can tell that he already really loves and respects her. And it's just a matter of her acknowledging that that's the case. Okay, I love that Sabrina says that he draws out the surety of her in a woman. I didn't quite understand that. I had to dwell on that a little bit. And what I think is it's because of her background being sexually harassed by her stepdad growing up, that she felt more like a sexual object than being able to embrace her womanhood. And I think those are different things. It's almost like her being able to comfortably finally accept her sexuality, in that it's not just a transaction with a sex buddy. Because before she framed it as like, oh yeah, I just go for the jocks because they take care of their bodies, they have great bodies, the sex is great, but then I don't have any ties to them. But in this case, Tucker is making her realize that she can be more soft and herself and comfortable in a relationship. Because I would say this, because of her upbringing is why she's so closed off to a lot of people. I don't think she's just naturally like that. It was a coping mechanism for her. So Tucker is slowly breaking down that wall, that barrier that she has. And it's making her really nervous because that wall was for her own mental health and safety. And now it's like coming down, but she's kind of liking it. And this whole process is, very disconcerting for her. And so I could understand why it took her so long to admit to, aside from not wanting to be a burden to him, which, as her friends point out, is probably partially an excuse, but also because she isn't sure whether she can fully trust him. Because if she takes down that wall, then she could get really, really hurt, because deep down, she's a softie, guys. Like, see how she treats her daughter? She's really a softie, and she deserves to be that softie and embrace her inner self, and Tucker's helping her do that. I just love that, guys. Okay, but again, the more that he supports her and breaks down those walls, the more she feels like she doesn't deserve him, because she thinks, what can I reciprocate in return? Even though she doesn't lack self-esteem, she believes in her ability to accomplish so much in life. She's like, can I really offer him the love and affection that he's giving me? Because I never experienced it myself. And I don't think she explicitly thinks this way, but like subconsciously, what's really happening, I feel, is she's like, I never experienced real love from the people who my caretakers. And yes, I have my besties, but that's much later in life. Can I really reciprocate this kind of romantic love that he is providing me without any strings attached? So she's just feeling really overwhelmed by that. But at the same time, because she keeps holding back, thinking that it's going to drag him down, he literally does get dragged down, emotionally at least, because he really wants for her to admit that she loves him, and he wants to feel it more, especially when he sees how much love she has the capacity to give because she does it for Jamie. He feels deprived, even more deprived, but at the same time, because he's too empathetic, he holds it back. Instead of asking or demanding for her to express it, he holds back. So that's where the relationship kind of has a rocky road, but because they're both trying to make this work so hard, it doesn't fall apart officially. And then that adds to her literally not being willing to lean on him for anything, not financially, not helping out with the baby. But even though she's so stubborn about it, he still finds ways to help anyway. And we gradually realize, like, even though she's like, oh yeah, like I'm not gonna let him come in and like take care of me in the middle of the night when I'm cramping or whatever, he still does. He still finds ways to just show up and like take Jamie out for a walk while she's got to study, or like rub her feet and stuff, or bring her snacks that she likes. Oh, such a sweet man. Moving on to the parenthood part, I feel like they make better, at least in this book, better parents than romantic partners. Because at least with Jamie, she was more willing to hand off responsibilities to him, just because it was so overwhelming for her, the amount that she needed to do for Jamie, and the fact that her bodily changes were getting in her way too. And I'll get to the motherhood part specifically later on. But because of all of this compounding, she literally couldn't handle it and then had to hand off responsibilities to him. So then it made it easier for them to have a more balanced partnership with regard to parenthood. And then later on, we finally get to see a little bit more of her breaking down her emotional walls for them to be romantic partners. Okay, there are so many other people, and I would be remiss if I didn't cover them because I think they're really important in creating this environment in which this couple find it really hard to be together. Let's start with her and her stepdad. So right off the bat, right when we start the book, we immediately are hit with this stepdad sexually harassing her. I think her coping mechanism is telling herself that, even though the situation's bad, it's not the worst that it can be. Like, he hasn't actually touched me, which he kind of already forced her to touch him in many ways, so inappropriate. And yet she still, because she can't actually get out of the situation yet at the time before meeting Tucker, she is like, well, he hasn't done this yet or that yet, and so it should be okay. But obviously she really wants to get out of that house, and it then bleeds into the relationship with Tucker and then them having a baby, because when they're first kind of seeing each other, he has no official say in her living situation. First of all, because he doesn't have a good one himself, but second of all, they're not official yet, so what can he really say or do other than let her kind of handle it herself? But he tries to step in certain moments when the stepdad is going even further, which is good. I'm so glad Tucker was there, but still respected her decision to stay in this house, but then, have her precautions. And later on, when they have a kid, is when Tucker has more of a say, this is also my kid. But he didn't frame it that way because I'm sure she would be really hurt by that. Instead, he just is like trying harder to coax her into being like, can we do something about this? And of course, in his own Tucker fashion, he goes ahead and figures out the whole bar and apartment situation secretly so that he has an option for her to go to. Oh, the man that he is. Guys. Okay, let's move on to Sabrina and the grandma. So the grandma's supposed to be a really important parent figure for her because both her parents left her. On the one hand, I understand from the grandma's perspective, she didn't sign up to be the sole caretaker for this child, and yet she still took on the responsibility. So I do give her credit for that. But at the same time, I think because of her own bitterness in life, she takes it out on Sabrina, and she takes it out on her quite a bit too, and says really, really hurtful things to her, like, oh, your parents were thinking about having an abortion, or when the stepdad belittles her, harasses her. She doesn't stand up for her, sometimes even laughs along. But then obviously we see moments of coherence, or at least moments of more empathy, where she does express some love and care towards Sabrina. And then, like I talked about in the previous episodes, is when you have a parent who's absent or who is not very good, the child usually hangs on to those moments when they are a good parent. And in this case, Sabrina's doing that with her grandma. So it's really, really tough. And then the whole grandma sleeping with the stepdad thing, like, I mean, that's kind of their business, I guess. And the mom's technically out of the picture, but like, it's a really messed up situation that Sabrina grew up in. And I'm surprised that Sabrina was as, I guess, sane and competent and empathetic as she was. Okay, Sabrina and Harvard. Sabrina just gets an extra hard time, the shortest end of the stick. She's poor and she's pregnant as a student at Harvard. The fact that she even got in was already a big deal, but then now her professors and her classmates are ridiculing her, literally tell her, like, change your wardrobe, dress the part, and thinking that, like, she's gonna be the part of the class just because she's pregnant, you know? And, I mean, it builds a fire in her, which, I mean, she had plenty of fire already. She didn't need any more motivation. But now it sets an even bigger fire under her butt that she wants to prove them wrong, that she can do this. But also she feels embarrassed too. And at the same time, she's like, I feel angry that I even felt embarrassed because I shouldn't feel embarrassed. And I totally get that feeling. I mean, I've been there. I'm sure a lot of you have been there, where you're just like, why? Like, you're angry at yourself for being bothered by what other people are saying or doing toward you, because you should be able to live your own life how you want. If she got into Harvard, she deserves that spot just as much as the next student, even if she's pregnant, even if she's poor. It just really infuriated me, you know, her whole experience at Harvard. Kudos to her. If I were her, I might have even dropped out, just how bad it was. Okay, Sabrina and the Besties. Again, I'd like to see more of the Besties, possibly even have their own book or something, or maybe like a little bit more in the epilogue, because I feel like they have a lot of potential to be main characters too. I mean, they got a lot on their plate and they're still super besties with her and super supportive. I mean, oh, I really like them. And I love how Sabrina really appreciates them too. She's like, I don't even know how I got them in my life, but I was blessed with having them as friends, and I don't even know how I deserved them. She's such a sweetheart. And I think that's why they love her so much. They're just rooting for her. Like, they see how hard she works and how smart she is, how kind she is. And that's why they want to help her even more. They go above and beyond for her because of that. So kudos to her and kudos to them. Okay, the Sabrina and Tucker's mom relationship. This one, I feel like out of all of the relationships, this one's the most complicated. Or maybe possibly the most straightforward one in terms of like understanding why they're behaving the way they're behaving, but it's complicated to fix, if you will. Because on the one hand, Sabrina's mom was his sole caretaker and dotes and treasures him. And probably because of that, wanted him to be closer to home and take on that business and be with a girl who's also close to home. But at the same time, like, she hasn't quite understood that she needs to live her own life and that he needs to live his. And so it's hard for her to separate those two things. And then Sabrina comes into the picture, and not only is she in the picture, she's in the picture with a baby. And they're not engaged or wed yet. And Sabrina hasn't said that she loves him yet. So all these things combined makes the mom feel like, first of all, this random woman who got pregnant with my son is now more important to my son than me. Like, that feeling alone already led her to take out a lot of things on Sabrina. And then the second part is, does she really love my son, or is she trying to take advantage of my son? And I feel like it could be a stretch, but I mean, I could see a lot of people coming to that conclusion very early on, given the situation. Do I feel like it's totally valid or earned? No, because Sabrina if she took the time to actually be open to learning who Sabrina is before coming to those conclusions, I don't think she'd feel the same way. But she doesn't. She immediately comes off as very defensive. And I feel like that's what really adds a huge rift to their relationship, because it's always then Sabrina having to not just be herself, but have to prove something. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because the more you try to prove something to someone, the more they're like, what are you hiding? When in reality, I'm just trying to be myself, but being myself is not enough for you. And so that really complicates their relationship. And it makes it really, really hard for Sabrina to warm her up. But Sabrina, the woman she is, kudos to her because of how much she loves Tucker and respects the mom for having to raise Tucker on her own, especially since she didn't have parents of her own. She's like, I really, really respect you. And because I respect how well you took care of Tucker and raised Tucker, I'm going to try my darndest to convince you that I'm going to be a good mother to your grandchild, at the very least. And then, second, that I'm going to be a good partner to your son. The lengths that she goes to do that, the comments that she puts up with, whew. Kudos to her. I mean, there's almost nothing worse than like passive aggressiveness when you're really just trying to show who you are as a person. And then everything that you do is just not enough. She's already experiencing so much adversity and discrimination in other parts of her life. But then now she also has to deal with basically a mother-in-law who is treating her this way as well. Okay, Tucker and the mom. So we talked a lot about their relationship already in talking about Sabrina and the mom, but I'd like to reiterate briefly that I feel like it's good that he had a firm boundary with his mom when it comes to Sabrina. Every time his mom attacks Sabrina, goes too far basically, is when he's like, you have to accept her. You just have to. She's a non-negotiable in my life, basically. Good for him. Okay, Tucker and the friend group. Oh, there isn't too much to say because we get so much of the friends already in the previous books in the series, but then to see it culminate in them, despite all their busy schedules, being away from town after graduation, and like all the concerns that Dean had, for example, about them falling apart as a friend group, they all still showed up. They showed up to help renovate the bar. They showed up at his opening. They showed up when Jamie came into this world. Oh, I love that. And I hope that continues forever. And we get to learn more about their friendship in the final book in the series next episode. And then the friend group and Jamie. They just dote on her so much. I mean, she's the first child of their friend group. Come on. So she gets all the love and attention, not only from the hockey boy friend group, but then also from her two best friends. Okay, I have two hot takes. So the first one is, I don't like that they named their daughter James. I mean, I know that gender fluidity is a thing and maybe their daughter will not identify as a she, her, but if Jamie does, then it's going to be a lot of work for her every time she has to explain, yeah, my legal name is James, but I am a she and I go by Jamie. Anytime they're asking for paperwork, you're calling a customer hotline or whatever. Although maybe by the time she grows up, there's not going to be such thing as customer hotline anymore. But, you get my point, right? It's just going to be like this constant struggle of like, hey, explaining. And I get that with my last name, Ing, because nobody knows how to pronounce it. Nobody knows how to spell it. Like when I say Ing there, and then I spell N as in Nancy, G as in George. And then they're just waiting there. And then I'm like, that's it. Like my last name only has 2 letters. And it's just every time I have to explain. And now for this to be your first name? Ooh. Well, let me know what you think about them naming their daughter James. The second is whether it was good for her to have tried so hard to warm up Tucker's mom. I appreciate that she did it. I feel like his mom is still a good person at the end of the day. She means well, even though she's hurt that Sabrina is now the most important woman in his life. But I'm glad that she, still made an effort to warm her up. And then if at the end of the day, the warming up didn't work, then I would see, it's totally reasonable for her to just stop and give up. But I'm glad that it worked. Okay, motherhood was such a big part of this book. I think we have to talk about it. So first of all, the breathing teacher. I thought that was so ridiculous and so uncalled for that the teacher basically frames it as like, you better do your job as a mom. Otherwise, the forceps and the cutting you up to get the baby out. It's like, I already have to carry this baby for months. I already have to have so many hormonal and other physical changes to my body that might end up being permanent, might even hurt me. And then yet you're still saying it's my quote unquote job to push hard enough. It's like, I'm gonna push as effing hard as I can, woman. That doesn't mean that the baby's gonna come out. Like, if they don't come out, they don't come out. Like, what else am I supposed to do? Is it my fault? Like, no, totally inappropriate. I'm glad too that they had a good time and they were talking dirty, and then they got kicked out of the class because that class wasn't a good didn't have a good teacher anyway. And then the way that she describes how unsexy and terrible she feels and looks, and that she's grateful that they can't have sex for 6 weeks because she didn't want Tucker to look at her in that state. It's like, not only does she have to do so much work for so many months and then go through this terribly painful birthing process, now she has to feel shitty about herself afterward and then not get any pleasure in the process. Like, motherhood. And then she was made to feel embarrassed and angry, like I was talking about earlier with the whole Harvard classmates and professors. The fact that she had milk coming out of her and then they were just laughing at her. Excuse me? Shame on you. Like, you had a mother. That's how you came into this world. Like, it's completely natural, and shut the fuck up. It's not your business. I love, though, that when she went to the lactation room, the other mother was so empathetic of her, and then it's like, oh yeah, if you have this problem, like, you take these, and she literally gave her some of the silicone pads, and she's like, temporary solution, but it'll try to work for you. Also, when she was trying to be empathetic with her about being a mom and student at the same time at Harvard. Basically, she's like, I was able to do it. It's hard, but I was able to do it, and you could do it too. And I've just felt like she needed to hear that so bad. The fact that the cost of pump engines is so expensive that even Harvard's campus only has a few, and that she has to rush across campus as she's lactating to get to one of these pumps. It's crazy. And then finally, not about motherhood, but about fatherhood, is that he was being hit on even more than before when he's walking Jamie. But and yet, her as a woman, it's like, oh, if you gave birth, it's like you're less valuable. Whereas with him being a dad, but being an unmarried dad is more valuable. Like, what the hell is that? Society's all backwards, okay? All right, now, favorite moments and quotes. Let's dive in. All right. First, when he visits her bedroom for the first time and sees the pictures of her with her two besties, and then feels warm and fuzzy inside, that like, oh, she at least has these two people who has her back. When they go for the painting class, and then Tucker warms up the elderly gentleman next to him, that southern charm, that empathy, sweet man, Tucker. When Tucker tells her about his former girlfriends in order to ease her nerves in meeting his mom. When they talk dirty at the birthing class and they get kicked out. When she's giving birth and he counts 38 times as she said she's going to kill him. And then number of bones in his hand that are broken, unknown. Like, this is so funny. And then he says that my woman's a trooper when she's giving birth. When they're leaving the hospital and he thinks to himself, or I think he actually tells her, like, what are we even doing? I've never even had a pet before. How am I allowed to take home a baby? Like, this whole time, he's preparing, he's easing her concerns about becoming a mom and being like, we got this, we'll be partners, blah, blah. And then when it actually happens, when the baby's literally in this world, then he's like, wait, can I really do this? Questioning all his life choices. I can't. When he prepared the apartment and bar, and then he had a nursery with the glider that she eyed and was posted on her Instagram, he just bought it for her. The whole time too, she thought that he was breaking up with her, when in reality he was preparing all of this as a surprise. And then he was like, can we please have this as a home for you, me, and Jamie? Oh, wow. I realized like all these are about how amazing Tucker is. And then the moment when Tucker's mom, like at the very end of the book, when Tucker's mom accuses her of having trapped him with the baby because of his inheritance, and then she's like, wait a second. Like, I'm not just standing up for myself. The main thing is I don't want Tucker to have the wrong impression. I love him, and I will do everything, including quit all of this that I have had ambitions for decades, to make sure that their happiness comes first. And obviously that meant so much to him because he accidentally heard it, and he's like, you love me, huh? I mean, he knew already, but to hear her say it, and to hear her say it in such a powerful, indignant way, even after all this time, she's been basically quiet whenever his mom had attacked her, but this time she was like, no, I have to be clear, I love him. Oh, and what a great ending to the book, guys. And a great ending to this episode. I love them as a couple. I love and respect Sabrina as well. I do not understand any of the hate that she receives. Let's give her more love and grace, guys. I mean, I think she's a great person, but let me know if you think otherwise. And are you excited? Because the next episode is going to be about the final book in the series, The Legacy, and we're going to talk about the TV adaptation more because I don't think we talked enough about that. All right? So I'll see you all, hopefully, in the next episode. Bye, besties.